Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo.
Good Friday morning on this October 3rd. Vanessa Denha-Garmo filling in for Teresa Tomeo this morning, my dear sister in Christ. Tomorrow's the feast day of one of my favorite saints. In fact, he was my dad's favorite saint, St. Francis of Assisi. My dad loved his prayer, which I'll recite shortly. We put that prayer in the back of my dad's prayer card at his funeral 24 years ago. And I had the pleasure and just the honor of visiting Assisi last year on pilgrimage with Teresa and Deacon Dom and corporate travel. And one of my favorite places in the world has become Assisi. EWTN has special programming on the saint this weekend. We'll talk about that with Doug Keck here this morning. About that and all the latest programming coming up this weekend on EWTN. He's joining us this hour. St. Francis of Assisi was a 13th century Italian friar and founder of the Franciscan order, known for his radical devotion to poverty, charity, and love for all creation, which established him as the patron saint of animals and ecology. Born Giovanni di Pietro around 1181, he experienced a profound conversion after a period of illness, eventually renouncing his wealthy background to live a life and preach a life of poverty, preach the gospel, and serve the poor and sick. Mother Angelica has been quoted as saying, St. Francis was so in love with God that he wanted everything he did to depend upon the providence of God, everything, even which turn of the road he went to. And I think that is so wonderful today, to think that God chooses the small and the lowly and the unworthy to do great things, to do great things. A quote from Mother Angelica about St. Francis of Assisi. EWTN Religious Catalog has beautiful gift items that make for great stocking stuffers as Christmas is just around the corner, honoring St. Francis of Assisi. So check that out as well. Again, Francis was born in a wealthy family in Assisi, Italy. Initially lived a worldly life. He had a conversion after a prolonged illness and a period of captivity. He experienced a turning point, hearing a call from Christ to repair the church. In response, St. Francis gave up his earthly possessions, embraced poverty, and dedicated himself to serving God and the poor. His commitment to a life of poverty and service led the establishment of the Franciscan order, a major religious order within the Catholic Church. He was a fervent preacher and served as an example of following Christ's teaching, literally showing compassion to all, especially lepers and the poor. He's recognized as the patron saint of animals ecology in Italy. His feast day is tomorrow, and I'm going to read his most famous prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Again, Doug Keck will be coming up with us here this hour to talk about their special programming on St. Francis and so much more this weekend. And also joining us is Bill Donahue from the Catholic League, the president of the Catholic League. We'll be talking with him this hour about Senator Durbin declines Lifetime Achievement Award. And they issued a letter about this. And we'll be talking with him about that this hour. But that letter came to us this week. Actually, it was emailed out. And Senator Dick Durbin declined the Lifetime Achievement Award that he was scheduled to receive from the Archdiocese of Chicago. And as Bill Donahue writes, this is exactly what the Catholic League was pressing him to do. The Catholic League was the only lay Catholic organization in the nation to press Senator Durbin to decline the award. Other groups targeted Chicago Archbishop Blaise, putting them in direct opposition to the Catholic hierarchy. As lay Catholics, we chose to focus on the lay Catholic party, this controversy. So we'll be talking with Bill Donahue this morning about that as well and so much more. As we approach 5 minutes past the hour here on Catholic Connection, it's time for the news on EWTN. Heavy to excessive rainfall persists across much of the southeast United States over the next several days, with isolated flash flooding possible. The heaviest rainfall is forecast over the east coast of Florida. Showers and thunderstorms will continue in the Pacific Northwest and Intermountain West through the weekend. Snow could mix with rain in the highest elevations. For those fall leaf peepers this weekend, a stark temperature contrast may be felt. A cold front moving through the west will bring below average temperatures in the 40s and 50s with rain and mountain snow, while the upper Midwest will feel summery as temperatures reach the upper 80s and remain dry under the mid-level ridging. New England temperatures will also trend milder with plenty of sunshine. Pope Leo urges Catholics to pray daily rosary for peace in the month of October. Pope Leo XIV invites the faithful to join in praying the rosary every day during October to invoke God's gift of peace, and announced that they will pray a rosary in St. Peter's Square on October 11th as part of the Jubilee of the Marian spirituality. President Trump is promising federal layoffs during the ongoing government shutdown. Today is day 3 of the partial shutdown, and Democrats are showing no sign of budging over the demands for health care funding. On Thursday, Trump said he would use the shutdown to decide which Democrat agencies to close, and later White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said Trump would use the shutdowns to cut agencies and programs that do not align with the administration's policies and values. Democrats are calling on the Republicans who run Congress to restore funding and protection to Medicaid and Obamacare. The federal government remains shut down. It's day 3. More from Rory O'Neill.
On Capitol Hill, political leaders continue to blame one another for the ongoing government shutdown. A Washington Post poll shows 47% of Americans blame President Trump and congressional Republicans for the shutdown. 30% blame Democrats, with 23% of Americans unsure. Meanwhile, President Trump and the director of the Office of Management and Budget are looking at firing thousands of federal employees to downsize the government. I'm Rory O'Neill.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration this week approved a new abortion pill made by a company that explicitly says it seeks to, quote, normalize abortion. The National Catholic Register is reporting that a September 30th letter obtained from the office of Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, a Republican, said the FDA approved the abbreviated new drug application for mifepristone tablets from Evita Solutions, a Virginia-based pharmaceutical company. The FDA said in the letter that it had concluded that adequate information has been presented to demonstrate that the drug meets the requirements for approval. On its website on October 2nd, Evita Solutions was advertising a new generic product as saying, "We seek to normalize abortion care, and we commit to making the care accessible to all." In an ex post, Hawley called the approval shocking. He wrote that the approval claims when the evidence shows chemical abortion drugs can be dangerous, even deadly for mothers, and of course 100% lethal to the child. Marjorie Dannenfelser, the president of the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, says in a media statement that the reckless approval by the FDA was unconscionable. These dangerous drugs take the lives of unborn children, place women and underage girls at serious risk, and empower abusers and trample the pro-life laws enacted by states across the nation, she said. Meanwhile, Americans say groceries are getting harder to afford. More and more families struggle to pay for groceries. Rory O'Neill has that story.
Just under half of those surveyed in the Harris Axios Vibes poll say groceries are harder to afford than they were a year ago. A third say they're about the same. 19% say groceries are cheaper. More Democrats and independent voters say costs are going up. Findings also show about 8 in 10 Americans believe President Trump has significant influence over the economy, but just 47% say that impact has been positive. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Sean Diddy Combs will learn his punishment today in a Lower Manhattan courtroom after being found guilty on 2 prostitution-related charges. Scott Pringle reports.
Prosecutors are calling for Combs to get at least 11 years in prison, while defense lawyers say the max should be 14 months. Michael Bachner is a defense attorney, and he says the sentencing will center around abuse.
So how the court considers that type of violence that was impacted on these people is going to be an interesting thing for the court to see. But this is going to be, I think the sentencing is going to take most of the day.
Combs, meanwhile, wrote a letter to the judge asking for mercy. In that letter, he says, in his words, "I lost my way. The old me died in jail and a new version of me was reborn." Scott Pringle, NBC News Radio, New York.
The New York Yankees are moving on into the postseason after beating the Boston Red Sox in the American League Wild Card Series. Scott Pringle reports.
After losing the first game, the Yankees came back to win the next two, including last night where they shut out the Red Sox 4-0 to take the series. Yankees pitcher Cam Schlittler, a star in this one, going 8 innings, striking out 12 and not allowing a single run.
I think I always have a good composure, and that's something I've been able to handle really well at the big league level. So for me, it's just kind of sticking to my routine and not thinking too much between each inning.
The Yankees got all 4 of their runs in the 4th inning, and now it's on to Toronto to take on the Blue Jays in the best-of-5 ALDS. Game 1 on Saturday. Scott Pringle, NBC News Radio, New York.
Meanwhile, the Tigers are heading to the American League Division Series. The Tigers took down the Guardians 6-3 in the decisive Game 3 of the wild card round from Cleveland. Tigers manager A.J. Hitch addresses the team after the win.
They test us and test us and test us, and we keep answering. Okay, it's taken 89 wins to get to this point. I know what 11 more bring. Our first win of the year was where? Yeah. Let's go back.
Go Tigers. Okay, I'm biased. I'm from Detroit. The CDC says about 70 million Americans are getting less than 7 hours of sleep per night, and that is making us older. Bree Tennis has that story.
Researchers in Sweden studied more than 27,000 brain scans and sleep patterns and found people with poor sleep have older brains. Scientists say that lack of Z's isn't just minor sleep deprivation, it's aging your brain by about a year. It also reduces attention spans and response time. Men have worse scores than women, but experts in the study say to keep a younger brain, we should be reaching for the pillow, not a cup of joe. I'm Bree Tennis.
Here's Mark Mayfield with the latest technology news.
Some people at OpenAI are not keen to expand into social media. On X, several OpenAI researchers said the new Sora app could feed AI slop videos that detract from the company's nonprofit roots. On Wednesday, CEO Sam Altman defended Tuesday's announcement, saying it's okay to also create tech that makes people smile. Instagram's boss says that they're not secretly listening to your conversations, but they've got you figured out anyway. In a Wednesday post, Adam Mosseri says the social media company does not switch on your phone's mic. Rather, the company's algorithm is just that good. Parent company Meta says a new policy in December will allow them to harvest even more of your data from their AI systems. And Amazon is pausing drone delivery service in Arizona. That's according to multiple reports and comes after an accident involving 2 of the e-commerce giant's unmanned aircraft. Police say it happened this week in Tolleson, just west of Phoenix, when the drones crashed into a construction crane. No one was hurt, and the NTSB is now investigating. Tech Report, I'm Mark Mayfield.
And a look at the weather, an overview, recap again. We have high temperatures in the 80s in the Midwest here in the Detroit area. A high of 83, Cincinnati 86, St. Louis 89, Chicago 88, Minneapolis 89, Memphis 87. We get New Orleans, we'll have 81, Houston, Texas in the 90s, 91, San Antonio 93, El Paso 91. It's 100 degrees is the high today in Phoenix, Arizona. We've got only 85 in Las Vegas only. San Francisco down to 67 degrees. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to take a break. When we come back, our own EWTN's Doug Keck will be joining us right after this. Tomorrow, we celebrate the feast day of one of my favorite saints, and I know it's a favorite of many people, including my dad, who loved St. Francis of Assisi and he requested that his prayer be on the back of his prayer card when he passed away, and he passed away 24 years ago. And there's special programming on the Saint coming up this weekend on EWTN. To talk with us about that and so much more is our own Doug Keck. Doug, good morning.
Good morning. Great to be with you, Vanessa.
Always a pleasure to talk with you. So we're featuring a special programming on one of my favorite saints, and I know he's a favorite of a lot of people, St. Francis of Assisi.
Absolutely. The top-notch EWTN programming team is always all over whatever is happening on the schedule and the ordinary of the church. And then, of course, St. Francis, obviously you were talking about the closeness to your own family, obviously the EWTN family, Mother Angelica, and the friars, of course, being Franciscans, so important to all of our spirituality at EWTN. And tomorrow, which is the feast day, we've got St. Francis and Brother Elias. That's a original docudrama, and he was his primary disciple and assumed leadership of the Franciscan order following Francis's death. That's at 2 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. And there's another movie called St. Francis of Assisi, Sign of Contradiction. And the idea of contradiction, we know, is that our Lord was as well. This is airing Saturday night, and it tells you who he really was, not brother, sun, sister, moon, not some sort of pre-60s hippie who was wandering around, hanging out with the animals. But really a wonderful, wonderful story that really clears up. And his great love for the church and all the things he did to promote the church. And, of course, with things that really Eucharistic adoration, obviously the whole idea of the creche and those things around Christmas, which Mother Angelica loved. She loved, obviously, the child Jesus. So Christmas is important to her. And we've also got coming up tomorrow, in honor of the Jubilee of Missions, which is happening over this weekend, we've got Missionary Servants of the Poor of the Third World airing on the 4th as well at 10 a.m. We've also got another program, The Heart of the Missionary, another program about Pauline Jericho, who will be beatified on May 22nd. So that's a program airing at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday. So you got a couple of interesting programs. Then we move into Sunday, and it's October 5th is the feast day of St. Faustina. We
love her.
Focus so much on Divine Mercy, but this is actually her feast day. So we've got a live event from Vilnius, Divine Mercy in Lithuania, and it's a Holy Mass on the feast of St. Faustina happening on Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. We also got another program called In the Name of Miracles. Maureen Dignan and her husband, who were involved with the miracle that helped push her over the top to sainthood. And that's airing as well on Sunday at 6 p.m. We also have the Holy Mass at the annual Sea Services Pilgrimage. It's an annual Mass. It's airing at 7 p.m. It's a tape delay, but it's from the National Shrine at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton in Emmitsburg, and it's really focused on military services that relate to seafaring branches of the military. So you can check that out as well. And then on Monday, Jim and Joy have Anthony DiStefano on talking about his new book, All Hallows Eve, where he's trying to reclaim Halloween and All Souls Day for the church, for young people especially. Another program which might be of interest of a lot of our audience is going to be on as well. Running Monday through Friday, we have a multi-part series called To Serve is to Reign from Our Lady of Champion, the only approved Marian apparition in the United States. So people can look to that all week long at 5:30. We've got, for the rest of the week, A Kingdom Foretold about the consecrated life because of the Jubilee and the consecration, a consecrated life. And we've got Our Lady of the Rosary of Pompeii because of the anniversary of the Battle of Lepanto, which is so important. And then towards the end of the week, we have a bunch of programs having to do with John Henry Newman, St. John Henry Newman's feast day coming up on the 9th. And, of course, he's going to be made a doctor of the church. So EWTN.com for all the additional information, our on-demand platform, and, of course, as well of the, our podcast central. So check all that out.
And we know, Doug, Pope Leo XIV is urging Catholics to pray daily rosary for peace in the month of October, and EWTN has the rosary every single day, so you could pray the rosary with EWTN.
Of course, exactly right, and multiple times a day, of course, so that there's a slightly different version. So because people have different cadences and comforts and who they like to pray with, and not only those programs, but then there's additional ones that don't air on a regular basis that are on an on-demand platform. And yes, it's so important to pray the Rosary for peace, and not only peace in the world, but peace in your own family. I think praying the Rosary on a regular daily basis, that and try to follow, if you don't get to a daily mass kind of situation, do the daily readings, and it's a great way to really, I think, center your family life on your faith.
Yeah. What I love about it too, Doug, is that, we all have stress throughout the day, right? Things happen. It gets hectic. We all need to take a time out, right? I always call it, let me take my time out. My time out for me is praying. So I will turn on EWTN when I know the Rosary is being prayed with Mother Angelica and the sisters, and it just centers me for the rest of the day. It's like I just need a time out from the craziness sometimes of the workday.
Absolutely. I used to always refer to, and I guess I still do, that EWTN is like an oasis in the chaos of secularism. It's really some place you can go to and kind of sit down and realize you're not alone, that there's millions and millions of people just like you who believe the same things that you believe. And like you said, the ability to go and kind of just let the faith and the Spirit wash over you through the prayers of the sisters and the teachings of the church, and that refreshment that you get from that, and that's why so many people over the years would tell us that they just leave EWTN on in the background, as you were indicating, at least during the time of kind of the peaceful period, because they do find that it brings them a certain level of peace in their home all the time.
Yeah, it's on in my home office all the time, Doug, and I watch it, and as when I'm in the middle of clients or working, I'll turn it on and I'll pray or just watch a programming when I have a break during the day. And I also mentioned earlier, as I started the program this morning, the EWTN Religious Catalog featuring wonderful products featuring St. Francis of Assisi. Right. We are approaching Christmas. I am a big proponent of wonderful little religious stocking stuffers. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the EWTN Religious Catalog?
Well, obviously, the catalog, really, I like to say when we're doing bookmark, I said, for all things Catholic, really, I mean, if you're looking for wonderful, like you said, holy reminders, his mother always referred to them as, and they can be a lawn creche or they can be a stocking stuffer. It can be, any one of those things. And we found so often, and as well, it can be the littlest things that people see or get. That is just that holy reminder, and the reminder is that you're not alone. The reminder is that there's something more than what you're dealing with right now. And so the smallest thing, like you said, a stocking stuffer, something that goes on somebody's keychain, those kinds of things, that just is a daily reminder or something that helps you get through the day. Something you put in your car, that's got the the idea of that your angel is with you, those kinds of things. Not to be hokey or to be sitting there saying these are talismans, but they're reminders that keep you going when things get tough, as you were indicating.
Yeah. Yeah, that the Lord is with you. One of the things I started doing too, Doug, is I started buying them, and I'll have EWTN deliver it to somebody else at their house, especially someone I know is struggling, just to say I'm thinking about you.
Right.
And and it's just a great way to reach out to somebody who is going through a hard time. And it doesn't get mailed to me; it gets mailed directly to my friend or whoever I'm sending that to, which is wonderful for me.
Right, and absolutely. And as you know, no matter who it is. And I don't care whether they're even angry with God at the time, that there's going to be that level of appreciation. They always said there's never a person you're going to meet who didn't care about the fact that no matter how angry they were with God, that you didn't tell them you were praying for their mother when she was dying.
Yeah, amen to that. Doug Keck, always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for being with
Likewise.
us here this morning.
Thank
Doug
you.
Keck with EWTN, the Inside Word. When we come back, Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League, will be talking with us about the Senator Durbin Declining Lifetime Achievement Award. Don't go away. Our next guest is a returning guest of EWTN, Catholic Connection, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing him on my program, Epiphany, on our affiliate station of Ave Maria Radio. Bill Donahue with us, president of the Catholic League, talking about a letter he penned regarding Senator Durbin declining Lifetime Achievement Award. And Bill, thank you for penning that blog and educating people on a regular basis with the work that you're doing every single day with the Catholic League. Give our listeners an overview for those who may not even know this story and what prompted you to write your latest blog. Thank you for being with us, by the way.
Sure. Let me just give a quick summation. Here a couple of weeks ago, Cardinal Supich, he runs the Archdiocese of Chicago, the Archbishop, he decided that in early November he's going to give an award, a Lifetime Achievement Award, to Senator Dick Durbin, who's from Illinois. Well, that set off a firestorm, beginning with Bishop Paparocki, who's a wonderful man, courageous and brilliant, out of Springfield, Illinois, which is the diocese where Durbin actually lives part-time. And Durbin had been denied communion in that diocese a long time ago because of his obstinate refusal to defend the rights of the unborn. His record for abortion is off the charts. He believes in partial birth abortion. He even believes in infanticide. In other words, when the baby is born as a result of a botched abortion, should the doctor attend to the baby? He says no. Now that's infanticide. That's killing infants. So he went beyond that. Well, Supich says, the Archbishop of Chicago, well, it's really about his immigration record. Yeah, but it's called a Lifetime Achievement Award. It didn't sound like it was an immigration type of thing. In any event, I jumped in after some other bishops, but my argument is this. I think that the lay people should stay out of trying to police the clergy. We need to police the lay people. Let the clergy police the clergy. In other words, the bishops. Several. It was in the end. It was 10 of them, and it was growing. It was going to be more than 10. And the bishops' conference was going to put out a statement. Let them deal with Supich and question his judgment on this. We should go after Durbin, and we were the only ones who did. Everybody went the other way. We went after Durbin, and we put out the email of his chief of staff so that our people could participate and pound away. I can't do this on my own. We may be the generals here, but we don't win wars without troops. And the troops are the people listening to this program and to the people who are on our website and they see the email and they pound away. The very next day, Durbin yielded. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, and thank you for that response and that courage, too, because all it takes is somebody like you, Bill Donahue, for people to see and say, you know what, if the Catholic League is going to stand up and speak out, so am I, and I'm going to support their efforts. Can you kind of, like you just said, generals need troops. We need people like us listening, and you may not have the Catholic League platform or the EWTN platform, but you do have a platform. And can you kind of elaborate on that, of what the call to action is for the general public, for people listening when things like this come up?
Well, let me just say this. I mean, EWTN is a gift, and I hope the Catholic League is as well. We're more activists as opposed to media. And the thing is this, a lot of people listening say, well, I agree with what you guys are saying, but I'm afraid to say it. Don't be. No one's going to get killed because you come out and you do the right thing. We're not asking you to take to the streets and get involved like that. I'm just asking you to do certain kinds of things. In the case of the Catholic League, I can be specific. When we find that someone has offended us, we will find that person's email. I can't tell you how many culture war victories we've had over the years, over the decades, because people pound away. You can get your name in the books in that sense, because, as I say, we can't do it ourselves. And then you can encourage family and friends to be involved. It doesn't cost you any money. It costs you no time, practically. All you have to do is click, and bingo, everything goes away. Now we have a monthly publication, everything else. You can go on our website and find out all of that. But people have to understand that if our side is quiet while the other side is roaring away, they're going to win. But we won. People need to understand we won on this. Okay. And the senator from Illinois has been there for decades. As I pointed out, it wasn't just even about abortion. He has tried to stop several different judicial nominees to the federal bench. He went after John Roberts. He went at Amy Coney Barrett. when they were to get on the federal bench, and others. He's been doing this 2003, 2005, 2017. He also supports gay marriage. So he doesn't believe in what the Catholic Church teaches on the central moral issues of our time. And we're not talking about small potatoes here. The Catholic Church regards abortion to be intrinsically evil. And the bishops have said, not Bill Donahue, the bishops have said that abortion is the preeminent issue in our country. And obviously, if you can't have the right to life, then everything else doesn't matter.
Exactly. How important is it, Bill, that Senator Dick Durbin declined the Lifetime Achievement Award, opposed to your point, what you said earlier, taking on him, opposed to taking on the church, opposed to the Archbishop of Chicago reneging on the offer?
Well, I don't know the actual discussion of what happened, but I felt from the beginning, first of all, that the lady should go after the laity. Yeah. But I also felt that we were in a better position. Supich put his neck out there, and he was being criticized by a number of bishops, and it was growing. I don't know that we would have had that much effect as lay people. It seems to me the bishops would have a lot more effect than we would. But we would have effect on Durbin. And quite frankly, I don't know if it meant that much to Durbin. After all, he's 80 years of age. He's finishing his career. Does he really want to go down in history as the guy who created disunity in the Catholic Church and bishops fighting with each other, leading to maybe a protest the night he's supposed to receive the word? It wasn't worth it in the end. And I said to him, listen, I appeal to your good sense. I said, put the interest of others over your own interest. And I did commend him in the end, because it was a force for disunity. And I don't think it was worth it for him in the end. I thought he was the vulnerable party, and I was proven right.
You know, that's a really good point, Bill. And looking at from his perspective, did you feel like he was going to see it your way when you reached out to him from the beginning? Do you think it was going to be more of a challenge?
Well, I didn't think he would see it my way to the extent, Vanessa, that he would change his mind. He's not changing his mind. People have said, Supich said, well, we'll be in dialogue with him. Well, the dialogue didn't work. He didn't show up yesterday. He's been there for decades. He's more of a zealot for abortion now than he was 20, 30 years ago.
Wow.
So that doesn't work at all. I thought that we could get him, though. Yes, because I think once you pound away, again, with our email subscribers, members of the Catholic League, and people, it doesn't cost you any money. It's quick and it's easy, and it's effective, because once his
we got to
chief
take a
of
break.
staff gets
Bill,
overloaded, that's it.
Bill, we'll be right back with you. Stay with us, Bill Donahue. We're back here in Catholic Connection. Vanessa Denha-Garmo filling in for Teresa Tomeo this morning. We've been talking with Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League. Talk about the Senator Durbin declining the Lifetime Achievement Award, but we're going to switch gears just a little bit, Bill, because I know you have so much more you're working on. What else is the Catholic League working on today?
Well, one of the big things we've been working on is this guy Zoran Mamdani. Now, normally I wouldn't just interest a nationwide audience on what's happening in New York City, but if this guy wins, and it looks like he may, this will change the face of the Democratic Party throughout the United States. The man says he's a democratic socialist. Okay, there's no such thing as it's an oxymoron. If you're a socialist, you don't believe in democracy. Just ask the people in Venezuela. 8 million people have left Venezuela because of Maduro, the socialist there. He's actually much closer to the Communist Party, which is why they've endorsed him. This is a man who, if he becomes the next mayor of the city of New York, he's running against Andrew Cuomo. The current mayor dropped out, Eric Adams, and Curtis Sliwa as a Republican. Right now, it looks like he may pull this off. He's only 33 years of age. He's a man of privilege. The left have always come from privilege. His father's a Marxist professor, teaches at Columbia University. His mother is somebody who hates Israel. He hates Israel himself, but he would keep the poor in their place. He just came out now today and said that these gifted high schools in New York, which he went to, by the way, he wants to close them down. He wants to keep the poor in their place. He wanted to defund the police. He kind of backed off, but now he says he wants his people to be in charge of making decisions about whether a policeman who's been questioned about some conduct, whether he should stay or not. They don't think that should be done by the police. This guy believes he wants to nationalize grocery stores. He wants to start a grocery store that's run by the government, so we can drive out the private ones.
Yeah. Socialism.
It's across the board. He'll drive the rich out, which they've been leaving and going to places like Florida and others. And you're not going to have anybody. Margaret Thatcher said it a long time ago. The problem with socialism is that after a while you run out of rich people to soak. And he will destroy New York worse than de Blasio did. It's amazing how dumb a lot of the people in New York City are. And I live here, and I love it.
Yeah, you know what? I don't understand. How does this happen? It's very alarming that you see this. And I blame a lot of this on, the media not doing their job, and that we have such biased media too, where they have a controlled narrative instead of sharing the facts. And then you've got one side constantly calling you have the Democrats constantly calling the right, using terms like fascist when you have a real communist. And this does affect the whole nation. I mean, I know you're saying it's just New York, but it doesn't, because don't you think, this could have a domino effect across the nation in some way, shape, or form?
Absolutely. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent so much time on it, and I did. I wrote over 5,000-word essay on this. I researched him very well, and I've written about his communist roots. If he wins here in New York City, this will be the bellwether. This will send shockwaves through the Democratic National Committee, and they'll realize that the moderate Democrats have no place, like Fetterman out of Pennsylvania. They have no place in the Democratic Party. They're going to go full-fledged, hardcore left. It's a matter of almost suicide too, political suicide, because the country doesn't want it, but they will never learn. People say, no, education will change them. Education will not change them. These are hardcore ideologues. They're zealots, and they're not going to listen to reason, and they lie. And if this guy ever got his way, the losers would be everybody in New York and then nationwide, because they'll be looking for people like him, like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, another New Yorker, and their ilk. The moderate Democrats, there's not many of them. There are a lot of good people out there who are moderate Democrats, but in terms of in the party itself, they're being crowded out by these extremists.
And what I don't understand, I've talked about this a lot with Teresa and other people over the years, is why is the majority of the moderates in the Democratic Party allowing the loud minority radicals to hijack their party? And they've been allowing this to happen for at least the last 5 to 10 years. Why? They're still silent. So many of these moderate Democrats are just staying silent.
People need to understand, talk about being political suicide, the big money, the billionaires, the Wall Street people, they've been funding a lot of this stuff. Trump got creamed in the election with money. The big money went, the Democrats don't represent the little man. They did it one time. They become the party of the super rich. And they're the ones who want to put the far left in. It's amazing, because the people made their money in a capitalist system, and they did so successfully. And now they want to destroy it for everyone else. It really is that bizarre.
Yeah, it is bizarre, but where does that come from? It's like, well, I want to be rich, but I want everybody else to be below me. That's a really good point. That's why I don't understand some people in Hollywood and a lot of people who support the radical left. It's like, you became wealthy and successful in the work that you're doing in your businesses that you created based on capitalism and what this country offers. And now you want to take it away from everybody else by pushing socialism and communism on everybody else in the country.
They speak out of both sides of their mouth. You can't tell me that you believe in women's rights and then try to argue that it's good for boys to compete against women and use their showers.
Yeah.
You can't do that, okay?
Yeah.
You can't tell me you're in favor of the poor and then you want to do away with the best schools. You can't tell me you're in favor of the poor and say, we're going to do away with school choice. We're not going to have charter schools. We're going to keep you consigned to the public schools with nobody in his right mind would ever elect to send his own kid to school. These people want to keep the poor in their place. They are the ultimate racist. They are the ultimate sexist, trying to destroy women's sports. I don't need lectures from any of these people telling me that they're more virtuous than us. No, I worked in Spanish Harlem. I made the illiterate literate. I worked with wonderful black and Puerto Rican kids back in the 1970s, and I was a college professor working with the black kids. So I don't need lectures from these people who have never gone above 110th Street in New York City, and yet they sit in their pristine backyards with their own security and their chauffeurs, and they're going to show you how virtuous they are because they care about the poor by trying to get the people who've succeeded. It's a war on Asians, and it's a war on Jews also, because in New York City, they're the most successful people.
You know what shocks me too, Bill, is that people in the country are so duped by what they say and not paying attention to what they do. So they'll say certain things, like talking out both sides of their mouth. They'll tell you one thing that you think they want to hear, but then their actions speak completely differently than what they're preaching on their public platforms. And we have to pay attention to this as a country.
Absolutely. I mean, look at what did Fidel Castro do? He was a rich lawyer. He donned fatigues. He wanted to show he's like the people. What did the Sandinistas do? They lived in the same palaces of the Somocistas who were there before them, and they put on fatigues. They say we're concerned about the poor. They punish the poor. They punish the poor every time they get in charge. The people on the far left, and they've done it in Venezuela. They're doing it now. They've done it in Cuba. They did it in Mao's China. He had 50 villas for himself, but he punished the people. Millions and tens of millions of people died under Mao. And how many died under Stalin? You're talking about 150 million people in the 20th century died under communism. And they want to elect a communist in New York City? They've learned absolutely nothing.
Yeah, well, it's like during COVID here in the state of Michigan, when our governor is telling us, you can't go to your families for Thanksgiving. You got to stay in lockdown. But she flies to Florida so she can have Thanksgiving with her family, and her husband puts his boat in the water while the rest of us are in lockdown. I mean, and people don't pay attention to that. It's like, do you see what they're doing? They're telling you stay put, but we're going to enjoy life.
Well, my favorite is that they would all go to these parties at the Hamptons and Martha's Vineyard, and the only people during COVID who were wearing masks were the people serving them.
Yeah, yeah. It's such hypocrisy.
The rich never wore them.
Yeah,
they knew it was a scam. It was a scam. It's all about controlling us. That's what it's about, trying to control the masses.
So what do we do, Bill? People listening, I mean, again, not everybody has the same platforms, but doesn't mean you don't have a voice. So what would you say to people listening today?
Well, for one thing, you have to not be timid. I'm not saying you have to be in somebody's face, but you not have to be timid with your own family and friends about speaking up. I'm not asking for discord, but I am saying that if you hear something that you find is totally disagreeable, you can say, excuse me, I don't think that's the way. You certainly don't speak for me. I also think that in terms of what we do here, again, we put up the email contact of the person who has offended Catholics, and we can't do it on our own. The reason why Durbin ultimately folded is because he got bombarded over 24 hours by tens of thousands of people who are on our email list of subscribers, maybe millions for all I know, and then he said it's not worth it. He's not worth it. So you can have a voice, and it doesn't cost time and money.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about that in my coach's commentary in the EWTN Radio Extra Hour to share with people how we can do that as Christian Catholics as well. And one way, Bill Donahue, is to share your writings, right? Your blogs, your website, because sometimes people get intimidated and say, well, I don't know exactly what to say. I'm like, you don't have to. A lot of people are very eloquent. They do their research like you just did on what's going on in New York. So you don't have to create this yourself and be a reporter. Use the information other people are putting together and share that with your friends and family.
Yes, you can download everything. And by the way, nobody needs our permission. I'm very proud of the work that we do here, and I don't care whether you don't like me as well. That's fine. Why don't you debate me if you don't like me? They won't do that. But take our material. You don't need permission. All we need is attribution. You know, that this came from the Catholic League. Don't pass it off on your own. But you can take anything that I've written or anybody else here and disseminate it as widely as you can. And, you'll see our website is rich with material. I just finished writing a piece about why people succeed in school and why they don't. The left thinks it's about money. No, money is an outcome. It's not a driver. It gets down to what I call the vital virtues of self-discipline, perseverance, and responsibility, self-control. If you don't have those, you're not going to succeed. And
not just in school, but in life.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. And I have my doctorate in sociology from New York University. I was a professor for many years, written 12 books, and I'm not afraid to take on the left, and neither should the listeners.
Yeah. Bill Donahue here with us, the president of the Catholic League. He's penned a wonderful blog about the Senator Durbin Declining Lifetime Achievement Award. It's just a testament to that your voice makes a difference. And what you just said, Bill, you couldn't do it alone. You did it with the support of the soldiers backing you up and saying, no, we're not going to tolerate this. And this is a great example where your voice does make a difference. A lot of people think, well, if I say something, what really good is it going to do? I'm just one person in this big world. Well, if everybody thinks like that, then we get nothing done.
Right. Dick Durbin didn't crash and fold because of Bill Donahue. It did it because the people who follow us went after him, and that's what made the difference.
What else do you want to share with our listeners? We have about a minute left with you here on Catholic Connection before we let you go. Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League. What else do you want to share? What last messages for our listeners?
Well, I'm finishing a 4-part series on transgenderism. I think that the greatest child abuse scandal in America today is what we're doing to some young kids, mostly girls, 80% of them, who are confused about their sexual identity. And we're involved in genital mutilation and chemical castration and hormonal manipulation. This is child abuse. It's being done by doctors. It's being supported by educators and therapists. And no, you're not helping people. These young people need help. And there's a lot of money to be made off of it, and they're exploiting these kids. So stay tuned for more on that.
And Bill, Netflix is exploiting it too by creating programming targeting kids as young as 7 years old in an animated program and another program promoting transgenderism. So, I mean, and
it's sickness.
It is. And Elon Musk is leading the charge of getting people to now cancel their Netflix accounts. Thank you so much, Bill Donahue, for being with us. God bless you and all that you do. We're going to wrap up here in this hour on Catholic Connection. We're wrapping up this hour of Catholic Connection. Vanessa Denha-Garmo filling in for Teresa Tomeo this morning. Thank you to Doug Keck from the Inside Word, giving us a recap of all the wonderful programming coming up over the next several days on EWTN, including a special program, a couple on St. Francis of Assisi as we celebrate his feast day tomorrow. So make sure you check all that out. And if you miss anything that you do really want to watch, you can go to EWTN On Demand. Check out the EWTN Religious Catalog. There's beautiful items on St. Francis of Assisi, which makes for great Christmas gifts and stocking stuffers and those moments, as Mother Angelica just say, reminders, holy reminders that, we're thinking about people in our lives, and those make wonderful gifts. Just to send a little note with a beautiful gift from the EWTN Religious Catalog, just to remind people that they are on your mind and in your heart and in your prayers, especially those who are struggling with anything. Thank you to Bill Donahue, president of the Catholic League, joining us here today, sharing with us all the things that they're working on, including this latest development where they really took the lead in urging Senator Durbin to decline the Lifetime Achievement Award that he was being given to by the Diocese of Chicago, and he so declined. Just an example of using your voice in these critical times and how we can all get involved in that as well. Coming up in the EWTN Radio Extra, we'll be talking with Noelle Mering, will be with us on Faith and Culture today, and I'll have a coach's commentary about using your voice. Don't go away.
Welcome to Catholic Connection with Teresa Tomeo, keeping you connected to your faith and your world. Teresa tackles the issues of faith and culture, the pro-life message, and media awareness. And now, here's Teresa Tomeo. Good
morning. It's EWTN Radio Extra. Vanessa Denha-Garmo filling in for Teresa Tomeo, host of Epiphany and the Ave Maria radio affiliate in the Ann Arbor, Michigan area. I'm also a leadership development coach and a communications consultant, and I'll be talking a little bit about communications and the power we have in our own voices in my coach's commentary today. Noelle Mering will be joining us here on Catholic Connection, fellow at the Ethics and Public Policy Center in Washington, D.C., author of Awake, Not Woke. We'll be talking with her about faith and the culture today. She will be taping Life on the Rock, scheduled to air in November, and an expert on women's issues. So Noelle Mering will be joining us here today. She's a amazing background and biography. I've had the pleasure of interviewing her before on my show, Epiphany. Like I said, she's a fellow at the Washington, D.C. based think tank, the Ethics and Public Policy. She's the author of the book Awake, Not Woke, Christian Response to the Cult of Progressive Ideology by Tan Books. And of course, she is also involved in Theology of the Home, theologyofthehome.com as well. So we'll be talking with her today. And in my coach's commentary, today, I'm going to be talking with you about the power of your own voice. Catholic Radio Open Dialogue Monologue, speaking truth in a divided age. And what does that mean to all of us? So that's my coach's commentary today, that we all have an opportunity to speak truth in love and charity and challenge people who are not speaking truth or who are promoting things that go against our faith or pushing certain ideologies onto us that we know are counter to our Catholic belief, our Catholic Christian belief. So we'll be talking about that as well here. It is the feast day tomorrow of one of my favorite saints, St. Francis of Assisi, and EWTN has special programming on the saint tomorrow as well. And Doug Keck just shared that with us in our last hour here on Catholic Connection. St. Francis of Assisi was a 13th century Italian friar and founder of the Franciscan order, known for his radical devotion to poverty, charity, and a love for all creation, which established him as the patron saint of animals and ecology. Born Giovanni di Pietro in 1181, he experienced a profound conversion after a period of illness, eventually renouncing his wealthy background to live a life of poverty, preach the gospel, and serve the poor and the sick. Mother Angelica once said St. Francis was so in love with God that he wanted everything he did to depend on the providence of God, everything, even which turn of the road he went to. And I think that is so wonderful, Mother Angelica said. Today, to think that God chooses the small and the lowly and the unworthy to do great things, to do great, great things. So St. Francis of Assisi, feast day tomorrow, pray for us. And there's wonderful religious items about St. Francis of Assisi in the EWTN religious catalog. So you can look at those for beautiful gifts coming up for the Christmas season. And of course, his most famous prayers is one of my favorites. We put this in the back of my dad's prayer card when he passed away 24 years ago. Lord, make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Again, we ask St. Francis of Assisi, whose feast day we celebrate tomorrow, to pray for us. It is approaching 5 minutes past the hour here on Catholic Connection. I'm Vanessa Garmo, filling in for Teresa Tomeo, and now it's time for the news on EWTN. Heavy excessive rainfall will persist across much of the southeast United States over the next several days, with isolated flash flooding possible. The heaviest rainfall is forecast over the east coast of Florida. Showers and thunderstorms will continue in the Pacific Northwest and Intermountain West through the weekend. Snow could mix with rain in the highest elevations. For those fall leaf peepers this weekend, a stark temperature contrast may be felt. A cold front moving through the west will bring below average temperatures in the 40s and 50s with rain and mountain snow, while the upper Midwest will feel summery as temperatures reach the upper 80s and remain dry under mid-level ridging. New England temperatures will also trend milder with plenty of sunshine. Pope Leo urges Catholics to pray daily rosary for peace in the month of October. Pope Leo XIV invites faithful to join in praying the rosary every day during this month of October to invoke God's gift of peace, and announced that they will be praying a rosary at St. Peter's Square on October 11th as part of the Jubilee of the Marian Spirituality. President Trump is promising federal layoffs during the ongoing government shutdown. Today is day 3 of the partial shutdown, and Democrats are showing no signs of budging over the demands for health care funding. On Thursday, Trump said he would use the shutdown to decide which Democrat agencies to close, and later White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said Trump would use the shutdown to cut agencies and programs that do not align with the administration's policies and values. Democrats are calling on the Republicans who run Congress to restore funding and protections to end Medicaid and Obamacare, and partly to fund illegal immigrants into the country as well. And that's part of the argument. The federal government remains shut down for a third day in a row. Rory O'Neill reports.
On Capitol Hill, political leaders continue to blame one another for the ongoing government shutdown. A Washington Post poll shows 47% of Americans blame President Trump and congressional Republicans for the shutdown. 30% blame Democrats, with 23% of Americans unsure. Meanwhile, President Trump and the director of the Office of Management and Budget are looking at firing thousands of federal employees to downsize the government. I'm Rory O'Neill.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration this week approved a new abortion pill made by a company that explicitly says it seeks to, quote unquote, normalize abortion. The National Catholic Register reporting that a September 30th letter obtained from the office of Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican from Missouri, said the FDA approved the abbreviated new drug application for mifestatone tablets from Evita Solutions, a Virginia-based pharmaceutical company. The FDA says the letter that it had concluded that adequate information had been presented to demonstrate that the drug meets the requirements for approval under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. On its website, as of October 2nd, Evita Solutions was advertising a new generic product that they say we seek to normalize abortion care and we commit to making care accessible to all. In an ex post, Howley called the approval shocking. He wrote that the approval came when the evidence shows chemical abortion drugs are dangerous and even deadly for the mother and, of course, 100% lethal to the child. Marjorie Denensfelder, the president of Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America, says in a media statement that the reckless approval by the FDA was unconscionable. These dangerous drugs take the lives of unborn children, place women and underage girls in serious risk, and empower abusers and trample the pro-life laws enacted by states across the nation, she said. Kristen Hawkins, the president of the Students for Life of America, said in a statement that the Trump administration's approval of the drug represents a true failure. More babies will die, more women will be harmed, and more Americans will be exposed to abortion water pollution as a direct result of this unfathomable decision, she said. This is a stain on the presidency and another sign that the D state at the FDA must go. Americans say groceries are getting harder to afford. More and more families are struggling to pay for groceries. More from Rory O'Neill.
Just under half of those surveyed in the Harris Axios Vibes poll say groceries are harder to afford than they were a year ago. A third say they're about the same. 19% say groceries are cheaper. More Democrats and independent voters say costs are going up. Findings also show about 8 in 10 Americans believe President Trump has significant influence over the economy, but just 47% say that impact has been positive. I'm Rory O'Neill.
Sean Diddy Combs will learn his punishment today in a lower Manhattan courtroom after being found guilty on 2 prostitution-related charges. Scott Pringle reports.
Prosecutors are calling for Combs to get at least 11 years in prison, while defense lawyers say the max should be 14 months. Michael Bachner is a defense attorney, and he says the sentencing will center around abuse.
So how the court considers that type of violence that was impacted on these people is going to be an interesting thing for the court to see. But this is going to be, I think the sentencing is going to take most of the day.
Combs, meanwhile, wrote a letter to the judge asking for mercy. In that letter, he says, in his words, "I lost my way. The old me died in jail, and a new version of me was reborn." Scott Pringle, NBC News Radio, New York.
The New York Yankees are moving on in the postseason after beating the Boston Red Sox in the American League Wild Card Series. Scott Pringle reports.
After losing the first game, the Yankees came back to win the next two, including last night where they shut out the Red Sox 4-0 to take the series. Yankees pitcher Cam Schlittler, a star in this one, going 8 innings, striking out 12 and not allowing a single run.
I think I always have a good composure, and that's something I've been able to handle really well at the big league level. So for me, it's just kind of sticking to my routine and not thinking too much between each inning.
The Yankees got all 4 of their runs in the 4th inning, and now it's on to Toronto to take on the Blue Jays in the best-of-5 ALDS. Game 1 on Saturday. Scott Pringle, NBC News Radio, New York.
Meanwhile, the Tigers are heading to the American League Division Series. The Tigers took down the Guardians 6-3 in the decisive Game 3 of the wild card round from Cleveland. Tigers manager A.J. Hinch addresses his team after the win.
They test us and test us and test us, and we keep answering. Okay, it's taken 89 wins to get to this point. I know what 11 more bring. Our first win of the year was where?
Okay, I'm a Detroiter. I can't help it. Go Tigers! The CDC says about 70 million Americans are getting less than 7 hours of sleep per night, and that is making us old. Bree Tennis has more.
Researchers in Sweden studied more than 27,000 brain scans and sleep patterns and found people with poor sleep have older brains. Scientists say that lack of Z's isn't just minor sleep deprivation, it's aging your brain by about a year. It also reduces attention spans and response time. Men have worse scores than women, but experts in the study say to keep a younger brain, we should be reaching for the pillow, not a cup of joe. I'm Bree Tennis.
Here's Mark Mayfield with the latest technology news roundup.
Some people at OpenAI are not keen to expand into social media. On X, several OpenAI researchers said the new Sora app could feed AI slop videos that detract from the company's nonprofit roots. On Wednesday, CEO Sam Altman defended Tuesday's announcement, saying it's okay to also create tech that makes people smile. Instagram's boss says that they're not secretly listening to your conversations, but they've got you figured out anyway. In a Wednesday post, Adam Mosseri says the social media company does not switch on your phone's mic. Rather, the company's algorithm is just that good. Parent company Meta says a new policy in December will allow them to harvest even more of your data from their AI systems. And Amazon is pausing drone delivery service in Arizona. That's according to multiple reports and comes after an accident involving 2 of the e-commerce giant's unmanned aircraft. Police say it happened this week in Tolleson, just west of Phoenix, when the drones crashed into a construction crane. No one was hurt, and the NTSB is now investigating. Tech Report, I'm Mark Mayfield.
And looking at forecasts across the country, 66 degrees is the high in Seattle, and San Francisco 67, Los Angeles 76, 100 degrees is the topping out in Phoenix, Arizona, Las Vegas 85, El Paso, Texas 91 degrees, San Antonio 93, and we're looking in the middle part of the country, Oklahoma City 91, Kansas 91, St. Louis 89, Memphis 87, and the Detroit area 83 degrees, just 75 is a high in New York City. Stay with us, everyone. We're going to head into my coach's commentary right after the break. Talk about speaking truth in a divided age. But here's my Catholic leadership coach's commentary here today on Catholic Connection, filling in for Teresa Tomeo this morning. And just to kind of give you an overview, I do Catholic leadership development coaching and communication consulting with my company, Epiphany Communications. So I try to look at things from a Catholic lens as well as a talk show host. And when people ask for Catholic leadership development coaching, I love to share that perspective and walk alongside them as they're trying to bring their faith into the work they're doing as they develop their leadership style. But we're all called to lead in one shape or form. We all have leaders in us that we just have to develop them. And that leadership includes speaking truth and love and charity. So, as brothers and sisters in Christ, I really want to really share this with you plainly, not just a coach, not just as a coach and a consultant or a former press secretary, but as a Catholic who's deeply concerned about the state of our public discourse and the spiritual cost of our silence. I've served as a reporter. I've served as a press secretary. I've covered politics and I've worked in government. And today I serve as a communications strategist, a consultant, and a leadership development coach. And so I look at things, I'm working with people and all the issues that they're dealing with. So I've served on a board of a robust local chamber of commerce here in Southeast Michigan, and I sit on its government relations committee. And I've covered politics as a reporter and worked inside government as a press secretary. Today, through Epiphany Communications, coaching, consulting, I help leaders find their voice, clarify their mission, and communicate with conviction. I was recently asked to help facilitate 2 city council candidate forums. Each group was asked several questions, including how they would address the growing political discord in our communities today and across the nation, but particularly in the community in which they were running for a seat. Now, most of the candidates responded, in fact, all I think, with I have an open door policy. Ask me any question you want. And while those are very decent answers, I couldn't help but wonder, do they truly mean it? Are they prepared to engage with hard questions, or are they just offering sound bites? Now, I don't know a lot of these candidates personally. Some of them I do know. But here's the truth. We've drifted so far from open dialogue and critical thinking in this country today. And in my last hour, I was just talking to Bill Donahue about that, about speaking up from the Catholic League. And we all have different platforms. They're not all the same. Some are much bigger than others. But you don't have to have a platform on Catholic radio or with the Catholic League. But you can use your own platforms to share truth. So over the past 5 years, the divide has really deepened. And Teresa and I have talked about this several times in both of our respective programs. We've stopped crossing political aids to solve problems and started attacking each other instead. You see politicians would cross the political aisle to solve problems. They would negotiate. They would sit and find common ground. Now we're just screaming at each other. And we're seeing the consequences of this, like the public vilification of Charlie Kirk after his horrific public assassination, a man who built a movement around asking hard questions and debating real issues. So what do we do as voters? What do we do as citizens of the United States? What do we do, most importantly, as Christian Catholics? What do? We speak up. We cannot stay silent. We can't. For a long time, the very loud minority has silenced the majority who don't believe in these ideologies. We have to reclaim the power of respectful dialogue rooted in truth and love. Take back our homes. Don't let the world hijack your home with these horrible programs. Elon Musk is leading the charge to get people to unsubscribe to Netflix because of particular programming they're putting out targeting young people, promoting transgenderism through an animated program and another program on babysitters. We have to speak up against this because they're infiltrating our homes. They're coming into our homes through these programs. We must challenge elected leaders, not with rage, but with respect and with reason. We ask questions, we hold the line, and we do it publicly. And you might be asking, well, how do I do that? Use your social media platforms not just to share memes, but to share meaning. Post scripture, share church teachings, ask questions that invite reflection, not division. Try to understand people. Ask them, why do you believe what you believe? Where did you get this information? Where is your facts and data coming from? In your own friend circles, don't shy away from tough conversations. Speak with humility, but don't water down the truth. And arm yourself with the truth. Do your research. Understand what's going on. Share that blog from Bill Donahue from the Catholic League. Share those X posts from Elon Musk saying we have to boycott Netflix and this is why. Do your research. Understand. Comment. I do it all the time. I engage in these conversations on social media with people who I don't even know because this is how we speak up. online, in a comment section, in group chats, be the voice of clarity. Be the one who says, I disagree and here's why, without resorting to mockery or hate or name calling. Just share facts and data. Share truth in the teachings of the church, especially when you're dealing with and talking to other Catholics who don't know their faith and the teachings of the church, the catechism of the Catholic Church. Arm yourself with that information and share that with your friends and family. Teresa and I have been talking about this on our shows with, T's 2 cents, My Coach's Commentary. We've watched stories rise through the news cycle that demand a response from people of faith, like the NFL choosing to have a halftime show that is far from family friendly, which Teresa talked about, I talked about, we talked about together. Elon Musk calling out Netflix for pushing transgender ideology in children's programming. The NFL halftime show featuring Bad Bunny, a performer who once said he wouldn't perform in the U.S., now headlining the biggest stage in America's sports with what many are calling a demonic drag performance. A male cheerleader, so to speak, transgender storylines and shows rated for children, and the women on The View who shout down anyone who dares to dissent. This is not Catholic Christian communication. This is not how we're supposed to dialogue on critical issues. We do it with Christ at the center as Christians. This isn't just culture, it's catechesis. If we don't speak up, someone else will teach our children what to believe. So yes, I say boycott the NFL halftime show. I say cancel Netflix if your conscience calls for it. But don't stop there. Speak, write, post, pray, start a blog, record a podcast, host a small group discussion, share a reflection on your parish bulletin board, comment respectfully on public platforms, write letters to your local representatives, ask your pastor to preach truth in love. We're not called to be silent spectators. We're called to be salt and light. And this is why we share with you these many interviews and programs with you on Catholic radio here on EWTN, so you can educate yourself, understand what's going on in the public platforms, and share that with your friends and family. And if you struggle to articulate these issues, use the words of other people who are doing the research, like Bill Donahue, like others, like people here on EWTN, Raymond Arroyo, and all the talent here. Share the programs, share the interviews, especially in critical issues. And if you're worried about backlash, remember this: Jesus was not crucified for being quiet. He was crucified for speaking truth and power with love and authority. We have to follow his lead. We know we're going to be persecuted. We have to stand up and speak truth with love and charity. We have to reclaim dialogue. We have to restore reason. Let's speak truth, not just in the church, but in the public square. Because if we don't, who will? Stay with us, everyone. We got to take a break, and we'll be back with our guest here on EWTN Radio Extra. Noelle Mering is a fellow at the Washington, D.C. based think tank, the Ethics and Public Policy Center. She's the author of the book, Awake Not Woke, a Christian response to the cult of progressive ideology, published by TAM Books. And she's here with us on Catholic Connection to talk with us about faith and culture. Noelle, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
So I know that you just did a taping, and you'll be that'll be airing on EWTN on Life on the Rock in November and the 23rd and the 30th. So let's talk about faith and culture, the topic that you discussed on Life on the Rock. And as an expert on women's issues today, give us kind of an overview if you want, what you want to share with our listeners.
Yeah, no, I think we're living in an interesting time. I mean, my particular focus, because of Awake Not Woke and also co-authoring the Theology Phone Book series, has been on family and ideology and what the particular threats are to the family at any given point. So spent the last 4 years talking about the woke movement around the country, and I've noticed that at every Q&A, I would hear from parents saying that their adult children had gone off to college or had grown up and gotten very progressive and left faith, and sometimes had very strained and if it's not entirely fractured relationships with their parents. So my new book I'm working on now is called No Contact, on political estrangement, particularly within families. So, there's really been a movement to move politics into the totality of our personal lives. I mean, you can see this with the sort of caricature talk or cliche talk of the Thanksgiving table and, your conservative uncle. This is very common talk in the secular world, just trying to inject politics into the heart of the family. And so I think we're seeing a lot of, really rotten fruits coming out of that, where people are estranged from one another over politics and ideology, particularly gender ideology has been very divisive within families, and how to navigate that. So my new book and the new work is focused on what is happening, what are the undercurrents of this movement, what's driving it, and how do we overcome it.
What an important topic, Noelle, to take over and take on lately, especially what we've seen in the culture. Not only have kids been indoctrinated for several years by the educational institutions, but we have people on public platforms and celebrities urging people not to go to Thanksgiving dinner if your family member voted for Trump. I mean, that's what we're dealing with in the culture today, where there's such a push to divide us. And in fact, the documentary Social Dilemma actually took that on showing how the algorithms are based to divide us more and politically in the country today.
Yeah, that's right. I think certainly technology plays an enormous role. I mean, they get us to be more diligent clients as consuming social media.
Yeah.
They can elicit a lot of anger out of us. And so, I really would urge people to, really take a hard look at their social media attention and how much attention they're giving it, and it's really problematic. But there's a lot of other drivers too. I mean, there really is an ideological movement that started in academia, but of course is now very popular, or increasingly popular, that family itself is a social construct, that we're sort of conditioned to believe that family is something really important and necessary. However, it's not so. And in fact, we are better off independent of it with what is called chosen families. Now, chosen families is a concept that can be utterly good if, we're in crisis and we have experience of friendships that become like family and really are people who are really there for us as though they're family. And that's a wonderful thing. However, there's also a really ideological bent towards it. It's long been something celebrated in the LGBTQ movement, that people would leave their regular family, or perhaps tragically and sadly be estranged from their biological family, and choose the family that they want to be with, a family of friends. And the sad thing is, a lot of these people, as they get older, they're saying very candidly and honestly, I need people who are loyal to me, who are have duties towards me, who are obligated towards me. And chosen family works when you're young and good looking and have money and healthy, but as you get older and you get sick and have certain life crises, you really need family. And so the sadness is not just the people who are cut off, but the people who do the cutting off, that they wind up oftentimes alone, and it contributes to the loneliness crisis. So it's really hard on everyone, and needs to be addressed, I think, pretty direly.
And Noelle Mering, who we're talking to, faith in the culture is our topic. And Noelle, with that said, true family, when we love each other, when we truly love each other, we speak truth to them, even though it's hard for people to hear, right? We don't allow people to go down a dangerous path just because we want to support their particular behavior. Because we love them, we want to stop them from that. So that's true family, is pointing out, the dangers that people put on themselves by the paths they're walking in life.
That's right. A well-ordered family, and every family is imperfect in a certain way, obviously.
Sure.
But most, I think we should be able to get over normal family conflict in a healthy manner. Because of what you're saying is so important, that we need, through the context of the family, we really do, as John Paul II said, have a school of love it's both horrifying and beautiful. It's horrible because, we're confronted with our weaknesses. We're confronted with our faults. In the intimacy of family life, it's hard to kind of ignore those things. But it's beautiful because we get an opportunity to contend with them in a place that is, or at least should be, unconditionally loving, safe, where we can get over and move past those sort of humiliations of our struggles and contend with them and triumph over them. So this is a beautiful thing that family allows us, but it needs that sort of context of, that we are obligated to one another, that that God gives us certain people to love. And even they might not be always the people that we choose, but there's people we're given, and there's a duty there that also is an opportunity to actually really love. It's easy to love people that we're choosing. It's harder to sometimes love the people who are God has given us. And so, but that's really where the triumph of love lies. And so, we as a society have to hang on to that, because, the fourth commandment, thou shalt honor thy father and mother, is the only one that has a promise, so that you may live long in the land the Lord has given you. So there really is a social and eternal repercussions to the health of the family unit. We as a society are not going to hang together if we can't hang together around the family dinner table.
And speaking of hanging around the family dinner table, Noelle, we're in the fall season. That means it is the holiday season. We have a couple of minutes before we have to take a break. How do we approach, these holiday gatherings around the dinner table when we are so politically divided and within the family as well?
I think that we recognize that the human person in our relationships are not meant to be all about politics. And so we dignify the dignity of the other person by giving care and attention to the other elements of their life that are more human. What are their friendships like? What are their struggles? What are their triumphs? What are their joys? What are their sorrows? What's making them, what's pushing them forward in the day? What's inspiring them to be better? What books are they reading? Those types of things. We have a human conversation that's not giving into the lie that we are all meant to be only and always about the political world.
Yeah, great point, Noelle Mering. There's so much to talk with our families that go beyond politics, like hobbies and interests and, just fun things about childhood and your childhood experiences and joking about mom and dad raising you. You know what I mean? There's so many
fun memories.
Yeah, fun memories. Noelle Mering's here with us. We're talking about faith and culture. Noelle, what's the new book you're working on? We're going to take a break, but what's the new book you're working on? No Contact, you said?
No Contact, Overcoming the Politics of Estrangement with Forum at Penguin Random House.
Okay, so when is that coming out?
Late spring, early summer of next year.
Okay, I want to get more into that and talk about what you're hoping people will take away from that book and after the break. Noelle Mering's with us here on Catholic Connection. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. Noelle Mering, she's a fellow at the Washington, D.C. based think tank, the Ethics and Public Policy Center, author of the book Awake Not Woke, A Christian Response to the Cult of Progressive Ideology by TAM Books. She has another book coming out this spring that she just was telling us about called No Contact. And Noelle, tell us what inspired this book. Give us more of an overview, and what are you hoping the reader will take away from the book?
Yeah, what inspired it really was just seeing how many parents and grandparents were going through the struggle of their kids being on such a divide and navigating that. And it really was just, I noticed this, the sea of heartbreak. So I just started digging into it. The statistics are really, sharply on the rise. I think 1 out of 4 Americans, about 68 million Americans, are estranged from a family member, but 1 out of 5 is estranged over political reasons. Wow. So it's a big issue, and it's been gaining traction and attention from all sorts of major media outlets. The New Yorker has written a piece about it, Vox, and New York Times, The Guardian. I could keep naming them, all asking the question: why are Gen Z kids or young adults cutting off their parents? And part of the problem is that all of the reasons are conflated. Like they will talk about, or on these forums and some of these articles. To give an example of one person who was abused physically, and so no contact. And then the next paragraph is someone who was upset that their parent voted for Donald Trump, and then no contact. These are very extremely different reasons. And historically, abuse and addiction, there've been these very tragic circumstances where people had to go no contact. And obviously, that's utterly understandable. We respect those people's decisions completely. But there are, this is very different. And oftentimes part of the confusion also is that people will say it's abusive if they don't affirm my pronouns, for example, or don't affirm my gender transition, that is its own sort of abuse, that they're denying my existence. And so you have all of this ideology that is taking on the language of the therapeutic as a way to kind of take on that moral stature of the victim. And of course, we've spent decades incentivizing young people to find their virtue and their victimhood. And every victim needs needs someone to accuse. And so if we're incentivizing victimhood, we're incentivizing people to point their fingers at one another. And if you're a young adult who has not gone through, who's just had the normal family conflicts, not abuse, not addiction, nothing extreme, but maybe we're politically very disaligned, and that is really alarming in today's age that is so polarized, and you're looking for a victim identity, well, looking back on your history growing up and finding that your parents did you wrong is going to be a sort of a natural place to land. So so there's a lot that's fueling this movement. There's not one particular thing. It's a lot of different things. But I think that there's, a lot of, insofar as we analyze it and expose what is exactly going on, that is in itself helps to diffuse it. But also I think there's ways that we can have both personal and collective responses to this.
Noelle, how much of it is the fact that you believe that people are not realizing what's really happening and why it's happening? They know there's a divide, but they're not understanding what really is driving it, what's behind it.
Yeah, I think that is a big part of the reason. I mean, I think, we talk about it as being just political, and I was in the last segment as well, but, that should be also followed up with by saying what we consider political now is oftentimes not political at all. It's anthropological. Whether a boy can become a girl or a girl can become a boy, that should not be a proper matter of politics. So in some ways, part of the polarization stems from the fact that we used to argue about maybe means to an end. What's the best means of eradicating poverty? Is it a big social safety net, or is it, empowering, personal responsibility? Who knows? That was the kind of the argument. And now we're arguing about the end itself, not the means to achieve a common end. And we don't have common ends. There's not ways in which we can say that, somebody who wants more traditional values has the same goal in mind for the country and understands freedom in the same way that somebody who, wants to eradicate any sort of gender binary is agitating for something very different. And so, that it caused a lot of conflict, and not to mention the reality that, particularly with the gender ideology, parents are always going to be a threat to kids who are trying to end an old identity, because the parent has a canon of memory of their child that the child doesn't have for himself. I remember my kids when they're 1 month old, 1 year old. They don't remember that. And so if you're looking to reinvent yourself so deeply, including in denial of bodily reality, your parent is going to be an existential reminder of an identity that just won't die.
Noelle Mering's with us here today, and we're talking about faith and culture. And Noelle, I was talking to you during the break about, the struggles that parents have too in sending their kids off to college, where a lot of them become so indoctrinated. And so when they head off to college, from my own experience, and I don't have a study on this in front of me or anything, but if the kid is going to college strong in their faith and their foundation, they're less likely to be kind of manipulated or indoctrinated. Can you kind of speak to that and what parents should be aware of?
Yeah, no, I think it's such a great question. I think that's exactly right. I think that, a lot of parents, for good reason, are deciding to pay more attention to what schools are choosing, both K through 12 and also beyond. And so I think we're seeing a real movement towards classical education and, sort of these Catholic schools, colleges around the country that we know are very orthodox. However, I do think that I know families who send their kids off to bigger secular universities, and it seems to me like one of the big differences, exactly what you're saying, how formed are they in the faith? How confident are they in defending it? How threatened do they feel when they see that people disagree? So part of it can be temperament. Am I a very sanguine? I'm a very sanguine person, and sometimes a sanguine can be far more influenced than somebody who's maybe more choleric or melancholic. How comfortable are they within disagreement? How comfortable are they standing on their own? Now, the good news is that I think a lot of college students right now are sorting into very particular categories. One being, it's not just all progressives have the monolith on the college campus now. We're seeing a lot more conservatives who are far more comfortable saying what they believe and defending it. not just conservatives, but also Orthodox Christians, so religious people of all faiths. So this is encouraging. In some ways, there's far less gray area than there used to be, and that in itself can have its own kind of reactionary pitfalls. However, there's a lot more possibilities for students on the college campus to band together with other people who are like-minded and sort of see the insanity of a lot of maybe what's coming in certain classrooms, and really reject it and, navigate how to handle, the pushback that they may get or may not get moving forward.
So, Noelle, who's the target audience for the book that's coming out in the spring?
I think it'll be primarily parents. However, I also think that pastors, priests, youth counselors, youth leaders, and also I hope peers, Gen Z themselves. So, I'm really writing it not to create a cartoon of villains and heroes. So I'm not trying to demonize the kids who are doing the cutting off either. I think that they, in most ways, are victims sort of an ideology that is really consuming and can be really captivating. And so I really wrote it out of love for both. I don't want these fractures to keep happening, and if there's a possibility of healing them, oftentimes some of the people I interviewed will say, we were cut off, or I did the cutting off, and then, years later came back, or they'll say, I was tempted to cut off, I didn't, and now my parents are in old age, and yeah, our relationship's not perfect, but I'm glad they're not alone, and I'm glad I get to love them now, even if it's hard. And I look back at that other path I might have gone down, and it would have been sorrowful. We just never have spoken to them again. The biggest regret people have on their deathbed is that they didn't amend relationships. And so I think we need to take that to heart and really take care to struggle through them in the best possible way so that we can actually really be together and hang together and really persevere in love.
Noelle, when you were doing the research for the book, was there anything that surprised you?
That's a good question. I guess what surprised me is how much, parents really have struggled with hope. I think that's the universal theme I would talk to here from parents who had been cut off is that hope was something they had to either compartmentalize, but, it was almost like they didn't want to get their hopes up. But there's also a lot of wisdom. Parents were all over the map. I mean, some parents were saying, I'll do whatever it takes to hang together with my kids. And other parents would say, I realize I just have to do the right thing. And if I do keep doing the right thing, I won't go through sort of a spiral of regret and second-guessing myself and questioning myself. And so, I guess their struggle, they were so candid and heartfelt that was really striking to me, just to be invited into the intimacy of such what is a very private and often not talked about sort of pain.
That's a really good point, because you're kind of getting into people's personal lives and their experiences. And was there an overall theme? I know you shared so many different examples, but was there any underlining common denominators with any of the people you talk with?
Most of them, it tended to be over something they had to stand by because they believed it was a matter of their faith. So either pro-life values or not affirming, or, even there's a lot of divide about COVID policies. That was, less about faith, obviously, but more just about not being prepared for the militancy which was all of a sudden brought to everyone's lives in 2020, 2021 was surprising. But the overall theme was just, I think, trying not to regret, but trying to own what they had done. If they had owned whatever mistakes they might have made, as all parents do. But the overall theme, I think, for the kids was one in particular said she really came around when she started to say to herself, how have I contributed to my own misery? I'm angry all the time. I'm upset. And I'm accusing people. What responsibility can I take? And so I think that theme of responsibility and trying to suffer well was on both sides kind of a common theme that was rather beautiful amidst all the heartache.
Yeah, what a great point. We're talking with Noelle Mering here today on Catholic Connection, EWTN Radio Extra. We're talking about Life on the Rock series that she just filmed, and talking about these very issues that we're talking about in faith and culture. Noelle, what do you, after you write the book, do you see yourself going on any kind of speaking tour? Because I think this is such an important topic to address in face-to-face with large groups and have open dialogue about this. I just think it's a wonderful topic that you've taken on with this book.
Yeah, I will be doing a lot of speaking, particularly around the release of the book. So I've been going around the country this past month. Actually, I'm in the midst of a lot of travel right now. But yeah, it does tend to be a topic that touches a nerve, and I think in part because when you lose a child to death, it's horrible and tragic. But it's something that people understand. They bring you meals, and so a lot of these parents will say, this is not something I can talk about. That this is I've lost my child in a way, but I know that, but they're still alive, and that gives me hope. But it also feels like something sort of shameful and private, and maybe I'm a terrible mom or terrible father. And so I find that there's a lot of people not talking about this, although it's affecting millions and tens upon millions and tens of millions. So I think that talking about it is going to be really necessary and needed, hard, but also maybe they'll find some solidarity in hearing that other people are going through this too.
Noelle, we have less than a minute left with you. Last words before we let you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, my other focus is just on, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I am working more and more to help solidify families who are not the point of adult children, but car seats and preschools and what have you, and diapers. So I have a Substack called Family Revival. If people want to follow my work there to find out some other things to kind of prevent this from happening.
Noelle Mering, thank you so much for being with us here on Catholic Connection. God bless you in all that you do.
Thanks for having me.
Noelle Mering, Faith and Culture. She'll be Life on the Rock in November. Stay with us, everyone. We'll wrap up here on EWTN Radio Extra. Stay on. Wrapping up. Second hour of Catholic Connection here on EWTN Radio Extra. Thank you, Noelle Mering, for being with us. Talk about faith and culture. Again, her programming that she just taped for Life on the Rock is scheduled to air in November on the 23rd and the 30th. You can catch it as well. Thank you for tuning in here on Catholic Connection. Vanessa Denha-Garmo filling in for my dear sister in Christ, Teresa Tomeo. I'll be back in the host chair on Monday. And I'm going to be filling in several times in this month of October. And my pleasure to be with all of you. And I thank you, EWTN and Teresa and the producers, for trusting me to be in her host chair filling in. Of course, I host my own radio program, Epiphany and Ave Maria Radio, which is an affiliate of EWTN. And so happy to be part of the Catholic Radio Network here. Matt Swain will be with me with Journey Home Highlights on Monday. Margaret French Isaac, producer of the film Soul on Fire, will also be joining us here on Catholic Connection. Soul on Fire, true story of John O'Leary. And then Rosemary McGuire Berry will be in studio talking about the temperaments of the saints. So that's on Monday here on Catholic Connection. Reminder, it is the feast day of St. Francis of Assisi tomorrow, the 13th century Italian friar and founder of the Franciscan order, known for his radical devotion to poverty, charity, and a love for all creation. Of course, his prayer, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is pardon, where there's faith, where there's despair, hope, and where there's light, joy. Thank you so much for being with us here on Catholic Connection. Vanessa Denha-Garmo, filling in for Teresa Tomeo. Have a blessed day.